How does a man lose his children, his home, and a business worth $19 million, then get told he will end up on the street like it is a joke? What happens when the people who pushed you out forget you still have a past, and your family still left something behind? Why did my hands start shaking when the county clerk calmly told me what was sitting on my grandfather's land? My name is Graham Reed, and I am 51 years old. I used to think I had a stable life. I had a wife, 2 children, and a company I built from nothing. People around me used to say I was steady. They said I was the calm one. I did not raise my voice. I did not chase attention. I solved problems and moved on. That calm nature became a tool other people used against me. They learned that if they pushed, I would try to keep peace. If they took a little, I would cover the gap. If they ignored me, I would work harder so things would not fall apart. Over time, I stopped being a person in my own home. I became a background role, like a lamp that stays on. Most mornings started the same. I woke up early, made coffee, and packed lunches. The kitchen was quiet, except for the soft sound of the fridge and the faucet. My wife, Lena, came in after I had already done the first round of chores. She wore neat work clothes and spoke to me like I was a helper, not her partner. She would list what needed to happen that day. She would remind me of pickup time, homework, and some bill that was due. She never asked how I slept. She never asked how I felt. It was always tasks and timing. I used to tell myself that she was under pressure. She worked in the same company I founded, and over the years, her role grew. She handled money, budgets, and board updates. People praised her for being sharp. I was proud of her at first. Then I started to notice she used that sharp voice at home too. When I tried to talk about feelings, she acted like I was wasting her time. She would say she had a meeting soon. She would say she could not do heavy talks before work. She would say we could talk later. Then later never came. At the office, the change was even clearer. My company used to feel like a workshop. People built things. People talked fast, shared ideas, and laughed about small wins. Now it felt like a stage. People watched who was walking in, who was standing near the conference room, and who got invited to what. The new center of gravity was not me. It was Lena and her boss, Vance Kellen. Vance came in like he owned air itself. He was always clean, always smiling, always moving. He made eye contact like a salesman, then looked away like you were already decided. He had money, connections, and a way of speaking that made others copy his tone. He often talked about growth, image, and control. He did not talk about building things. He talked about managing people. In meetings, he did not argue with me directly. He did something smoother. He would talk around me. He would look at Lena and ask her opinion on decisions I had once made alone. He would say it was good to have fresh thinking on the table. He would talk like my role was to nod and stay polite. When I tried to steer the meeting back to the product or the clients, he would smile and act like I was being emotional. He would say we all needed to stay modern and move with the market. I stayed calm. I did it because I did not want to scare my team. I did it because I did not want to bring work trouble into my home. I did it because I believed that my results would speak for me. But results do not speak when other people control the room. That week, the tension followed me everywhere. In the kitchen, Lena kept her phone face down, but it still lit up often. She would glance at it, type fast, then go back to her coffee like nothing happened. When I asked if everything was fine, she gave me a small smile that did not reach her eyes. She said she was just busy. She said I worried too much. She said it was not serious. At school pickup, I saw how far it had gone. Our daughter, Emma, is 14. Our son, Owen, is 10. Pickup time was always a small moment of peace for me. I liked seeing their faces after a long day. I liked hearing the simple details, like what they ate, what made them laugh, what they learned. That day, I parked in the usual line and waited. Then a black car pulled up behind me, smooth and quiet. A driver stepped out and opened the rear door. Lena got out. She did not look at me first. She looked toward the school doors. Vance stepped out from the other side like it was normal for him to be there. He wore a clean jacket and checked his watch. He spoke to the driver and then stood beside Lena, close enough that people would notice. I watched other parents watch them. People tend to follow confidence. They see money and neat clothes and calm smiles, and they assume the story is already written. Lena greeted a few parents like she was hosting something. Vance nodded at people and kept his smile. He did not look at me as a person. He looked at me as a detail. When Emma and Owen walked out, they saw Lena first. Emma's face lit up. Then she looked at Vance and did a quick smile too, like she had been trained. Owen waved at me, then hesitated, like he was trying to read the room. Lena hugged them, then spoke to them in a soft voice. Vance leaned down and said something to Owen that made Owen laugh. It was the kind of laugh Owen used to save for me. I walked toward them and said hello. Lena turned and gave me a look that was not angry but warning. She said we needed to keep this smooth. She said there was no reason for any scene. Vance stayed calm and friendly in his face, but his eyes were cold. He spoke in a polite tone and acted like we were all on the same team. It was the kind of polite tone people use when they want you to know you have no power. Emma stood slightly behind Lena, watching me. Owen shifted his feet and looked between us. I asked the children how school was. Emma gave short answers. Owen started to talk, then stopped when Lena touched his shoulder. She did not squeeze hard. She did not need to. It was the signal that she was directing the moment. I offered to take them home. Lena said she already planned dinner and homework time. She said she would handle it. She said I could drop by later if it was arranged. The words were not harsh, but the meaning was. It was not my home in that moment. It was her space, her plan, her schedule. I was treated like a guest who should ask first. Vance stood there while she spoke, like a witness. He did not have to say much. His presence was the point. People around us heard parts of it. They saw a well-dressed man beside my wife. They saw me standing alone, holding my car keys, trying to keep my face steady. I could feel my skin warm with shame, but I kept my voice even. I said I understood. I told the children I loved them. Emma nodded without meeting my eyes. Owen waved again, but small this time. When they left, they did not walk to Lena's car like a family. They walked like they were being guided. The driver opened the door again. Lena got in first. Vance got in after, like it was his place. The children climbed in and looked out the window. Owen's face pressed close to the glass for a moment. Then Lena turned his head gently away. I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. My hands did not shake. My face stayed calm. But inside, something heavy settled in my chest. It felt like the world had moved a few inches out from under me. I started the engine and drove home alone. That evening, the office posted photos from a company event earlier in the day. It was one of those quick team moments near the lobby where people take pictures for social media. I had been there, standing near the center, talking to two engineers about a client issue. In the posted photo, the frame was tight. Lena and Vance were centered. The team looked bright and proud, and I was not there. At first, I thought I missed the picture. Then I saw my sleeve at the edge, like proof that I had been cut away on purpose. It was not an accident. It was a choice. It was a public choice, small enough that nobody would call it cruel, but clear enough that I could not pretend. I walked into the kitchen and set my phone down. The house was quiet. I could hear the clock in the hall. The sink still had the lunch boxes I washed earlier. I looked at the family photos on the wall. Lena had already moved some of them to a different angle, so her face and the children were clearer than mine. It was a small thing. It was also not small. When Lena came home later, she did not mention school pickup. She did not mention Vance. She talked about work updates. She talked about a new plan to streamline. She talked about how the company needed to look strong. I listened and asked one calm question. Why was Vance at school? She paused, then said he was helping. She said he had time and offered. She said I should not read into it. She said I should focus on being supportive. Her words were neat, like a memo. There was no care in them. There was no softness. She did not ask if it hurt me. She acted like my feelings were an obstacle. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I told her I heard her. I told her I wanted peace for the children. She nodded like she had won something. She picked up her phone and walked out of the kitchen while still typing. Later that night, I sat on the couch with a folder open on my lap. It was not an official folder. It was just papers from old years, notes, client lists, and sketches from the early days of my company. I stared at my own handwriting and felt like I was looking at someone else's life. I realized I had been living as if my place was guaranteed. I realized other people were acting as if my place was already gone. My phone vibrated on the cushion beside me. I looked down and saw a message from Lena. She did not ask where I was. She did not ask if I was coming to bed. She wrote that I should get used to small spaces and that I would not be in the house much longer if I kept making things difficult. I read it twice, then placed the phone face down and sat very still. I did not answer Lena's message that night. I did not because I had no words that would help. I also did not want to give her a reaction she could use later. I learned over the years that some people keep your worst moment like a souvenir. If you show pain, they remember it. If you show anger, they point at it later and call it proof. The truth is, I did not always live like this. There was a time when Lena looked at me like I mattered. There was a time when my home felt like my home. I keep those memories close because they explain how someone can stay in a situation that slowly becomes wrong. I met Lena when I was in my late 30s. I was not flashy. I was building my company and living on schedules and coffee. I spent long nights fixing problems and long mornings meeting clients. Lena came into my life through a friend's small gathering. She stood near the kitchen, talking with confidence. She asked me what I did, and I told her I ran a small software business. She said she liked men who built things. At the start, she was warm. She listened. She asked questions. She made me feel like my work was interesting, not strange. I had been so focused on survival that I forgot how it felt to be seen as a person. When we started dating, she made small life feel bigger. We went to simple places, and she still dressed like it was an event. She introduced me to people with pride. She told me I was reliable. She said she felt safe with me. When we got married, we promised to be a team. I believed it. I had built my company from a rented room and 2 used laptops. I had no rich family support. I had no loud connections. I had a few loyal clients and a habit of showing up. I worked hard because I did not know any other way. When Emma was born, I slowed down for her. I held that little bundle and felt my whole body soften. For a while, Lena and I were both tired and happy. Our home was messy in a normal way. I changed diapers, warmed bottles, and took late-night walks around the block so Lena could sleep. She thanked me then. She kissed my cheek. She said she could not do it without me. When Owen came, the pressure grew. 2 children changes everything. There were more bills, more schedules, more worry. I kept my company moving and still tried to be present. I did not want to be a name on a school form. I wanted to be a real father. I learned how to braid Emma's hair. I learned how to pack Owen's snacks so he would actually eat them. I went to school events even when I was exhausted. Lena changed in small steps. It was not one big shift, it was many small ones. She started to speak like she was managing me. She would tell me what I needed to do instead of asking. She would correct me in front of the children, even on tiny things like how I folded a towel or how I cut fruit. At first, I laughed it off. I told myself she was tired. The company was also growing, and Lena wanted a bigger role in it. She had skills. She was organized. She understood numbers better than I did. I brought her in to help with finances and operations. I thought it would help us both. I thought it would make us stronger. I did not see the risk. I did not imagine my work life and home life could become the same battlefield. At first, it was good. Lena improved systems. She created budgets. She brought order to chaos. People praised her. I praised her too. It made her glow. Then the praise started to change her tone. It made her speak like the only person who knew how things should be done. Over time, she stopped saying we. She started saying I. She would tell me she was carrying everything. She would say she had to clean up my mess. She said it at home and at work. It was like she was practicing the story she wanted others to repeat. Then Vance showed up. He came in as a partner and advisor. That is what Lena called him. She said he could help us scale faster. She said he had contacts and experience. She said he was a serious person with serious money. I remember meeting him for the first time in our lobby. He shook my hand and smiled wide. He spoke in a smooth tone. He said he respected founders. He said he liked my origin story. It sounded like a compliment, but it also sounded like a summary, like I was a past chapter he had already read. Vance did not build our product. He did not sit with engineers and work through technical problems. He sat in nice rooms and talked about strategy. He talked about how the company should look, how the leaders should act, how the story should be told. People listened because his confidence filled space. He made decisions sound simple. He made risk sound exciting. He also made it clear he was used to being obeyed. Lena liked that about him. She started using his phrases at home. She talked about brand. She talked about alignment. She talked about optics. If I questioned a move, she acted like I was being small-minded. If I asked about our family time, she acted like I did not understand ambition. I started to feel like an employee in my own marriage. There were moments that still sting because they were so public. One time at a company dinner, I was talking to a client about a technical issue. Vance walked up and placed his hand on the client's shoulder like they were old friends. He steered the conversation away from the issue and toward expansion plans. Lena joined him. They spoke fast and smiled. I stood there holding my water glass, like the person who brought them to the table and then got pushed to the edge. Later, in the car, I told Lena I felt invisible. She said I was being sensitive. She said Vance knew how to close deals. She said I should be grateful someone like him wanted to help us. I asked her why she did not back me in front of others. She said we should not disagree in public because it looks weak. She said I should learn to be more adaptable. At home, the disrespect became routine. If I forgot one small thing, Lena would speak like it proved I could not be trusted. If she forgot something, she would blame my energy for distracting her. She began to measure me by what I gave, not by who I was. The children started to sense it. Emma became quieter around me. Owen started asking Lena for permission, even when he was asking me a simple question. One day I overheard Emma on her phone with a friend. She was talking about parents. She said her mom was the strong one. She said her dad was nice, but not really in charge. She did not say it with hate. She said it like a fact. That hurt more than anger would have. At the office, I started getting left out of small things. A meeting would be moved, and I would find out after. A key email thread would have my name missing. When I asked my assistant about it, she looked nervous and said she thought I knew. People avoided my eyes when I walked through the open plan area. They were not cruel. They were careful. That was worse. I tried to fix it the normal way. I thought if I worked harder, respect would return. I took on extra client calls. I stayed late. I coached younger staff. I kept projects on track. I did it because I believed the company still needed me. I also did it because I wanted to prove I was not some old figurehead. Vance used my calm against me. He would act friendly when others were watching. He would say he valued my stability. He would say he liked that I did not have an ego. Then he would step into decisions I had always handled and treat it like an upgrade. Lena stopped being my partner in private too. She would come home and talk about Vance's ideas like they were gold. She would compare my approach to his, but in a way that always made me sound slow. She did not scream. She did not throw things. She did something colder. She spoke like she was teaching a child. She spoke like her patience was a favor. There was also a money shift that I did not fully understand at first. I noticed new spending patterns. I noticed expensive work dinners, new clothes, small luxury items that did not match our old habits. When I asked about it, Lena said it was networking. She said it was necessary. She said I would not understand because I never cared about image. Then there were the rules. Rules about when I could see the children if Lena had plans. Rules about how I should talk in front of them. Rules about what I should not say about work at home. Rules about my own schedule. She would remind me that the company needed a clean face. She would say the children needed consistency. She would say I was lucky she was holding things together. Each time I tried to push back, she turned it into a complaint about my character. She said I was stubborn. She said I was stuck in the past. She said my calm was not strength, it was avoidance. She said I did not lead, I reacted. That was the pattern. She would say something sharp, then describe my response before I even gave it. If I went quiet, she said I was passive. If I tried to explain, she said I was defensive. If I asked for respect, she said I was insecure. It was like arguing with a locked door. I started to see how the story was being written around me. Vance was the strong leader. Lena was the sharp executive. I was the older founder who should step aside. People believed it because it was repeated in small ways. A laugh here, a joke there, a photo crop, a missing invite, a compliment that sounded like an ending. That is why Lena's text about me ending up on the street hit me so hard. It was not just a threat. It was a summary of how she saw me now. She thought I was a man who could be moved like furniture. She thought I would accept it because I always had. And that is when I realized something simple. I had been trying to earn respect from people who had already decided I did not deserve it. The next morning, I went to the office earlier than usual. I did it because my mind would not settle at home. I told myself I needed to focus on work. I told myself that if I stayed calm and professional, the tension would pass like it always did. When I walked in, the lobby felt different. The front desk worker smiled, but her smile looked forced. Two people from operations stood near the hallway, pretending to talk, but watching me. I could feel it in the air, like the building knew something before I did. My access badge did not work on the first door. I tried again, slower, like I did not want to make it a thing. The light stayed red. I stood there with my hand on the badge reader, and I heard someone behind me clear their throat. A younger manager I trained years ago stepped forward and said he would help. He looked at the badge reader, then looked away from my eyes. He said he was sorry, and that the system must have been updated. I asked him if there was a meeting on my calendar I missed. He said there was a short discussion, and that it had been moved. He said he thought I knew. His voice was careful, like he was trying not to step on a hidden wire. He walked me to a conference room I did not usually use. It was smaller and had no windows. A glass pitcher of water was already on the table. There were chairs arranged in a neat line, like someone planned the scene. I sat down and waited. A few minutes later, Lena walked in with Vance. Behind them was an HR representative I recognized but did not know well. The HR person carried a folder and a laptop bag. Lena did not greet me like a wife. She greeted me like a person she had to manage. Vance smiled, polite and smooth, like he was greeting a guest at his own event. Vance spoke first. He said they wanted to move quickly and keep things professional. He said the company was entering a new phase and needed alignment. He said there had been concerns about efficiency and communication. He said the board wanted a clear plan. I asked what the concerns were. I asked for specifics, not because I wanted a fight, but because I needed to understand what story they were telling. Vance said it was not about blame. He said it was about reality. He said the company needed a certain type of leadership voice. Lena added that people were confused by mixed messages. She said the team needed one direction. She said my presence was creating friction. She said I had built something important, but now it was time to trust the process. I listened. I watched their faces. Lena's expression was calm and firm, like she had practiced. Vance's expression was friendly, but his eyes did not soften. The HR representative typed notes and kept their gaze down. I asked a simple question. I asked if they were removing me from active work. Vance said they were restructuring my role. He said it was a transition. He said I would be protected financially. He said it would be smooth if I cooperated. Lena said the children needed stability and that this would reduce stress at home. She said it like my work was a problem for the family, not the thing that built the family's life. She did not mention the years I stayed up late to keep client systems running. She did not mention how many trips I canceled to be at school events. She spoke like I was a risk that needed controlling. I kept my voice even. I said I wanted everything done properly. I said I would not argue in that room. I said I would take time to review what they were asking. Vance nodded like that was fine. He said someone would follow up with details. He spoke as if my decision did not matter. Then the HR representative said my system access would be paused during the transition. They said it was standard. They said it protected everyone. They said I could request specific files if needed. That was the moment I understood the line had already been crossed. It was not a discussion. It was a removal. They had already moved the parts of the board they needed. They had already prepared language. They had already arranged the room. They had already decided I was the past. I stood up. I thanked them for the clarity. I said I would leave quietly. I did not slam the door. I did not say anything sharp. I simply walked out. As I walked through the open plan area, people avoided my eyes. A few looked down at their screens like they were suddenly busy. One engineer I had mentored gave me a small nod, like a silent apology. I kept walking. In the lobby, my phone buzzed with a security notification. It said my access had been changed. It was a clean message, the kind that pretends it is neutral. I put my phone in my pocket and stepped outside. The day was bright, and it felt wrong. I sat in my car for a moment without starting it. I listened to my own breathing. My hands stayed steady on the steering wheel. I told myself I would handle this like an adult. I told myself I would not beg for a role in the thing I built. I drove home. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw a moving van down the street. For a moment, I thought it had nothing to do with me. Then I noticed the front door was open. I saw boxes near the entry. I saw a man carrying a lamp that had been in my living room for years. I walked inside and stopped. The house looked like a staged listing. The photos on the wall had been changed. The room smelled like a strong cleaner. A few of my books were gone. My jacket that used to hang by the door was not there. Lena stood near the kitchen island with her phone in her hand. She looked up and said I was early. Her tone was flat. Vance was not inside, but I could feel his influence in the air, like the smell of expensive cologne that stays after someone leaves. I asked what was happening. Lena said she was reorganizing. She said she needed a fresh start. She said the house felt heavy and that the children needed a calmer space. She said she was being practical. I asked where the children were. She said they were with a sitter. She said she would bring them back later. She said it was better if they did not see tension. I told her I would take my things and stay somewhere else for a few days. I said it calmly, not as a threat, but as a boundary. Lena nodded like she expected it. She said it was probably best. She said we could talk about schedules when things settled. I walked upstairs. My side of the closet looked smaller. Some drawers were empty. My toiletries were moved into a small bag on the counter like I was a visitor. On the nightstand, my charger was gone. The bed was made tight, like a hotel bed, not a shared bed. I felt a strange calm as I packed. It was not peace, it was distance. It was the calm you feel when you realize the argument already ended without you being told. I took a suitcase and filled it with basics. Clothes, laptop, a few notebooks. I did not take sentimental items. I did not trust the moment to make decisions like that. I moved like I was following a checklist. On my way out, I looked at Lena and said we should keep things respectful for the children. She said she agreed. Then she said something that landed like a cold coin in my hand. She said the children were tired of stress and that she would not let me disrupt their routine. She said if I wanted time with them, I needed to cooperate. I asked what cooperation meant. She said it meant accepting the transition. She said it meant not stirring anything at work. She said it meant understanding that people had moved on. I did not answer. I walked out with my suitcase and got in my car. I drove to a small motel on the edge of town. It was clean enough, but it was not home. The room smelled like detergent and old carpet. The bedspread was thin. The curtains did not fully close. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. My phone buzzed with a message from Emma. She asked where I was. The message was short and careful. I told her I was working through some adult issues, but that I loved her and would see her soon. She replied with a small heart icon. It should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like a tiny bandage on a deep cut. That evening, Owen called. His voice was bright at first, then softer. He said Mom told him I needed space. He said Vance said everything would be better now. He said Vance told him that grown-ups make hard choices and that I would be okay. I kept my voice steady and told Owen I loved him. I told him nothing was his fault. I told him he could call me any time. I did not speak badly about Lena or Vance. I did not want my son carrying my anger. Owen said okay and hung up. When the call ended, I sat very still. I realized the children were hearing a new story about me. A story where I was the problem. A story where I had to be managed. A story where another man could step into my place and speak for the family. That was my clarity moment. Not rage, not panic, just clarity. I stopped trying to convince Lena to respect me. I stopped trying to win Vance's approval. I stopped trying to be liked by people who were already rewriting my life. I decided I would act with patience and structure. I decided I would protect myself and my children through proper channels. I decided I would not do anything messy. The next morning, I drove out of the city. I went to my grandfather's old farmhouse. It was a few hours away. I had not been there in a long time, not because I did not care, but because life swallowed my time. The farmhouse was small and worn, with faded paint and a porch that creaked under my steps. The air smelled like dry wood and dust. Inside, everything was quiet. Sunlight came through the curtains in thin lines. I walked through rooms full of old furniture and boxes. My grandfather was a steady man. He did not talk much, but he watched everything. As a kid, I used to sit beside him and listen to the radio while he fixed tools. He would pat my shoulder once in a while, like that was his way of saying he was proud. I went into the bedroom where he used to sleep. The bed was still there with an old mattress that had sagged in the middle. I started cleaning, moving things aside, trying to focus on a simple task. I lifted the mattress to check the frame, and that is when I saw the envelope. It was tucked flat, hidden like someone knew exactly where to put it. The paper was thick. My grandfather's handwriting was on the front. It had my name written in a way that made my throat tighten. I sat on the floor and opened it carefully. Inside was a short letter. It was not emotional. It was direct. It said he was leaving something for me and that I should keep it quiet. It included a set of coordinates written in neat numbers. I did not understand why he would hide it under a mattress. Then I understood that hiding it was the point. He did not want it becoming a family argument. He did not want it becoming a target. He wanted it to reach me when I was old enough to handle it. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I placed it in my inner jacket pocket like it was a fragile thing. I sat in that quiet room for a long time, listening to the house settle. Later, I drove to a public library. I sat at a computer in the corner where nobody looked twice at me. I typed the coordinates into a map search and waited for the image to load. When it appeared, I leaned forward without meaning to. The screen showed land that did not look empty. It showed massive structures, roads cut into the earth, and long lines that looked like active work areas. It was not what I expected at all. I stared at the screen until my eyes felt dry. Then I wrote the coordinates in my notebook again, slow and careful, like I did not trust my own vision. I logged out of the computer, returned to my car, and sat there in silence, holding the notebook on my lap. My first impulse was to tell someone. I wanted to call Pete, my neighbor, and say I found something strange. I wanted to call my sister and ask if she ever heard my grandfather talk about land. I wanted to call Lena and say she was wrong about me ending up with nothing. I did none of that. The letter had one clear instruction. It said to tell no one. Even if it was only my grandfather being careful, I could feel why it mattered. I had just watched my life get pushed around by people who acted confident in rooms. I was not going to hand them a new target. I drove back to the farmhouse and sat at the kitchen table with my notebook open. I wrote down the coordinates again. I wrote down the county name from the map. I wrote down a list of questions I needed answered. I kept it simple, like a checklist. Who owns the land? What rights come with it? What is built there? Who is operating? Who pays who? What records exist? I did not know the right words yet, so I stayed with plain ones. I told myself I was not making a fantasy. I was verifying a fact. The next day, I drove to the county office. It was a small building with a flag outside and a quiet waiting area. The chairs were old but clean. A few people sat holding forms. Nobody cared who I was. That felt good. In Denver, everything felt like a stage. Here, I was just another person asking a question. When I reached the counter, I spoke carefully. I said my grandfather passed and I was trying to understand a property he left. I said I had coordinates and a rough area. I asked how to check land records. The woman behind the counter, Marla, looked at me like she had seen 100 worried faces that week. She said I could start with parcel maps and a name search. She asked my grandfather's name and my own. I gave it. She typed and waited. The keys clicked in a steady rhythm. While she worked, I forced myself to keep my expression neutral. I did not want to look excited. I did not want to look nervous. I did not want to attract attention. I watched the bulletin board on the wall. It had small notices and local dates, nothing dramatic. That also felt good. Marla's face changed just a little. Not shock, more like focus. She turned her screen slightly away, then checked another page. She asked me to repeat the spelling. I did. She nodded and kept typing. Then she said something that made the room feel smaller. She said the land was active. She said it was tied to mineral rights, not just surface use. She said there was a lithium operation on or near that parcel, and that the rights connected to payments. I asked her what she meant by payments. She said she could not give me private details of other parties, but she could explain the basic setup. She said if I owned certain rights, then an operator could owe royalties based on production. She said those royalties could be paid on a schedule. I felt my mouth go dry. I kept my voice even and asked how to confirm what rights were mine. Marla said I would need to verify ownership through the proper records and then speak with a legal professional if I wanted to act on it. She said her office could point me to the correct departments, but they could not be my advisor. I thanked her. I asked if there was a public contact for the operator or the county department that handled those filings. She wrote down a number and a department name on a small slip of paper. Her handwriting was neat. She slid it under the glass and told me to take my time. I stepped away from the counter and sat in the waiting area. My legs felt heavy, like I had stood up too fast. I stared at the slip of paper in my hand. It did not look like much. It was just ink and a phone number, but it felt like a door had opened into a new world. I did not call from the lobby. I walked outside first. I stood near my car and looked at the sky. I needed space around my head. I needed air. When I called the number, a recorded menu answered. I listened, pressed the right options, and waited. A man picked up and introduced himself as part of a county department. I asked what the site was and how the land rights worked. I kept my questions basic and calm. He said the operation was active and had been for a while. He said there were filings, and there were normal steps for owners to confirm their position. He said he could not discuss private agreements on the phone. He said I should talk to a qualified attorney if I believed I had rights connected to the site. I thanked him and ended the call. That was enough for one day. I did not need more excitement. I needed structure. On the drive back, I kept thinking about Lena and Vance. If they knew there was value like this connected to my name, they would try to pull it into their control. They would frame it as a family asset they managed. They would say it should be used for stability and that I was not fit to handle it alone. They would say anything that sounded reasonable. So I stayed quiet. Back in Denver, I did not go to the house. I kept the motel room for a little longer. It was not comfortable, but it was simple, and it was mine. I moved my suitcase under the table and set up my laptop. Then I started doing small, boring tasks that made me feel grounded. I downloaded copies of old emails that showed my role in the company's early days. I saved calendar entries that showed meetings being moved without me. I made a timeline of when Vance joined, when Lena's role changed, and when the tone at home shifted. I did not write opinions. I wrote dates and actions. I also saved Lena's messages. I did not reply to most of them. I just saved them in a folder. The street message went at the top. Not because it hurt the most, but because it said the quiet part out loud. Pete called, offering a couch. No questions. I declined, but felt steadier. Not everyone chased power. Spoke gently with Emma and Owen, reassured them, absorbed their confusion without burdening them. Avoided office, watched remotely. Colleague warned, my name erased from meetings, questions routed to Vance, Lena, planned transition. Consulted lawyer Priya Shah, calm, procedural. Shared basics, pushed out, home-controlled, grandfather's Montana land. She advised silence with connected parties, organize facts, protect access. Power often shrinks against procedure. Moved to Pete's spare room, quiet, safe, slept deeply. Lena's messages sharpened. Controlled child access, urged stability for company. Replied only about kids, short and calm. Former client noticed my absence. Concern, not gossip. Montana calls, confirmed offices, steps for verification, patient, public channels. Priya. Children's time protected first. Company through governance, not emotion. Mediation scheduled hotel conference, same night as gala, deliberate pressure. Attended calmly. Vance, Lena pushed closure, painted me obstructive. Priya presented, verified Montana lithium land rights, substantial royalties, my inheritance, timeline of unauthorized access changes, fund movements, conflicts. Board Rep Renee paused session. Gala speech canceled, review scheduled. Vance's confidence cracked, Lena's composure faltered. I stated clearly, stable child schedule via channels, professional name protected, no public fight, no disappearance, walked out steady. Music continued behind doors, but their narrative ended. No vengeance, just documented truth prevailing in their chosen arena. Children safe, rights reclaimed, life quiet, and mine resumed.